I don't know how to do that.
Oh, good Lord.
Good Lord, he put live.
Sink or swim, Phil.
Take swig, Phil.
Yep.
You got this, man. You got
I'm gonna sink to the bottom of the ocean.
All right, guys, welcome to Honda's Hangout. This is the season finale. I've been waiting for this all week long. We got some amazing set designs. We got Bart, we got Kenneth, we have John. I mean, just amazing. We're going to skip right past all the prizes and do it at the end. And we're going to move straight right to Bart. And he's going to tell us who he is, what he does, what companies he works for, all that. So, Bart, take it over, man.
Oh, my God.
Right on the spot.
Yeah, I know, right? So I've been doing this for, 26 years? I've worked at Haunted Verdun Manor, Rearranging. I had my own haunt, the Haunt House. I've worked for Dark Hour. I've worked for Miller's Thrillers, and I am currently at the Haunted Schoolhouse and Laboratory in Akron, Ohio. I'm also doing Escape Akron and All American Axe Throwing.
Oh,
that's just a tidbit of it. The quick version.
Right. How about you, John?
All right. Well, I've been an actor for 13 years. Just recently got into the sets. Working at Forest of Screams currently in Medina, Ohio, and full time for Night Scream Productions. And that's really about it for me.
Right. Newcomer coming up on the scene.
Yeah. Hopefully.
All right, Kenneth, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I started doing haunted houses in 2007, I think. And then in 2013, I opened K Studios, and we do sets for haunted houses. And then we started branching out into theater and escape rooms. And I own an escape room here in Louisiana called The Escape. And we just build big, crazy stuff. I've worked for Dark Hour, and we've done some things for 13th Gate and Netherworld and Rise. Pretty much from Buffalo, New York to Tampa, Florida, we've been there. So we do a lot of stuff.
So is it just you, or do you have help when you work on stuff?
It is just me. If it's a big project where there's a lot going on, I have people that I can call on to come and help out. But on a daily basis, yeah, it's just me.
Oh, nice.
I'm busy.
Right. All right, Bart, we're going to go over to you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, how you got into setting scenes and all that stuff, and when you decided, like, okay, I'm good at this. This is what I want to do.
I guess I would start way back in 1993. It was my second year of haunting. Went out to Verdun Manor to see Lance. I've been acting the year before, and I kind of went out there and I said, hey, I want to help. He hears that all the time, just like we all do. We all hear, hey, I want to help, but of course everybody wants to do the fun stuff. And of course he wanted to make sure that that's not what I was there about. So the very first day, I weed eated the whole property. And yeah. So after being sunburned and all that, he came in and goes, all right, we'll come back tomorrow. And that was the first, I started building sets at that point in time. And yeah, it was pretty awesome. Great experience. From then on in, but from the first time I started acting, I was hooked. But starting building sets and doing all that is a lot of fun. I really got into it just a little bit at Thrillvania. I helped build some sets and do that. But I don't think I really got into it until I opened up my own haunt in 2007, which was the Haunt House. And that's where I really started. Because, basically I had to do it. So I really learned a lot from Lance, but then, of course, learned a hell of a lot more doing it myself.
Right. A lot of the times, like when I see you do work, and of course you had A Haunter's Life, the YouTube page that I followed like religiously, just waiting for that, email from the Haunter's Life, and I've noticed one special thing about you is that you could take a room and just throw shit in it and really make it look like it's supposed to be like that. I mean, you have
Just
that
throw
knack.
shit in it?
Yeah, dude, that's what it is.
It gets real gross for a while, but
Yeah, I mean, you can just take a room and say, no, that's not good. No, just, throw that clutter out there and just make it, your own. I was really impressed with all that stuff that you do.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I do is when we start out is I go, okay, what kind of room you want to do? And then the second thing is that I see that a lot of haunted houses don't realize or don't do is where's the actor going to be? Because again, when you're building the room, you need to think of the actor in mind, and you need to think that you might not have a good actor in that room. So you need to have an area where that actor can be good by basically being able to do a startle scare. So that actor cannot be just in an open room because a bad actor is not going to work in that spot. So the biggest thing that I do on the second part of building a room is finding an actor spot for them to come out of, and that way they can grow from there. Building a room, it all depends on. I mean, I could take a drawing and just go with it. I don't know what I do or special that you're talking about. I just do it.
Megan Larson would like to know, what is the most challenging part of designing sets?
Making it look realistic. I would say that's the biggest challenge. It depends on if you're in a budget or not. If you're on a major budget, that would be the biggest challenge. I think that being on a budget, sometimes actually you get a little bit more creative with things. But I would say the biggest challenge would be pinpointing where that actor needs to be, because you can build this awesome set, but you got to think, where can I put the actor in this thing? How can this flow? I would say that would be the biggest thing is making it flow.
Bob Kowal would like to know, is there a dream set on your bucket list?
A dream set?
Yes.
No, I don't have one.
Dream set on your bucket list.
I never even thought about that. No. I'm always on the go, always going. So I hardly have any time to sit and think. I mean, it's always go. I'm always thinking of way ahead of where I'm at.
Where do you do most of your research at when you want to do stuff, or does it just come out?
Google Image or Pinterest. I do a lot of I create files on my computer, and I just go and okay, I like that in that scene, I'll pull that one over. Okay, I like that, and I'll pull that over, and so yeah, I find little images here and there, different things, and pull them all over, then draw something out, and there we go.
So you do hand sketches, or do you actually do a SketchUp or anything like that?
I do hand sketches. I got a guy right now that does CAD drawing for me. So
Nice.
like we're tearing up the whole third floor, and I go over to Liam and I go, Liam, we want to do the third floor. Here's a sketch of what I want, and then he does the CAD drawing for me. So it's pretty awesome.
After you guys sketch it up, do you guys try to put tape on the ground to see how it's going to look, and then from there you make any modifications?
I get the tape measure out, and I put little lines on there, and I actually get some lath and lay the lath down where the lines are. And there was some walls that didn't work out, because it looks really good on paper, but once you get in the
that's
room,
what I was going to say.
it doesn't work out all the time.
Yep.
So we've ran into that several times, but again, we go in there, we measure everything out, and we do the CAD drawing, and again, once you lay it out, though, you're like, wait a minute, I need to take that hallway out, make this room bigger. So been doing that in four different huge rooms on the third floor, so just recently.
Nice.
All right, we're gonna move over to John. Why don't you let us know, when you started doing it, when you decided you had the knack, and you figured it was like, I was good enough to do this. Yes,
I'm still learning that, actually. My first major experience with it really was last year, when it came down to it at Forest of Streams. We had a crew of people and needed to get it done, and my boss one day was like, hey, here's this area, figure something out for it. And I kind of sat in there for a while, scratching my head, and was picturing it out. And I don't know, I was always a D&D nerd, so it was really easy for me to like describe the room out loud, and like the feeling you get from it. But last year, man, it was when I really got a chance to. I had been on teardown crew for 7 Floors of Hell before, and done some setup up there, but I'm still relatively new, so I'm figuring it out as I go.
Right. What's your inspiration? Where do you go to for ideas?
Survival horror video games a lot of times have phenomenal layouts for sets. Most recently was the newest Resident Evil, but
nice.
There's some horror books that I've gotten into that kind of paint pictures in my head that I'd really like to do, like a Lovecraft theme something or other at some point. Get Cthulhu going on and all of that, but that's really it. Like I said, it's new to me, and I'm loving every bit of it.
Courtney Rourke would like to know, what was your first prop or room you designed?
Props were always like weapons and stuff. I did some fake chains that looked real, but my first room was actually the original post on Haunter's Hangout that I did, just of the old decayed hallways and stuff like that. It wasn't anything major, but I was pretty happy with it. So, and my boss was pleasantly surprised.
Well, you can't beat that.
Right. I was like, it kind of gave me a little shove to put more effort and thought into it, because it had been, one of those things that I was constantly in self-doubt about.
Matthew Miller would like to know, do you have a favorite theme?
Yes, but I don't get to do it very often. It's dystopian or post-apocalyptic future. Mad Max style stuff. That's just, it's something that's always resonated with me.
Oh, very cool.
Nice.
All right. Well, we're going to move over to Kenneth, and yeah. Let us know how you got started. What got the niche going for you?
Well, I've always been involved in theater growing up as a kid, and until I was like 18 or 19, and then lovely Hurricane Katrina came and changed everything. But no, I came back home after being in New York City for a few years, and literally just like randomly drove by this sign that said haunted house, this haunted house called Shadowlands. And so I went and I just walked in, and they were looking at me like I had 2 heads, and I was like, do y'all need help? And they were like, yeah, we opened in 2 days. And there was literally nothing in there. There were walls. There were some walls, but nothing else. Like, they had all these ideas and they had a bunch of stuff there, but nothing was done. And so I was like, if y'all trust me, I think I could do this. And so I just went in and was just like a whirlwind, and just like inadvertently took over how the place looked from then till the date that they closed. And they just gave me some keys, and they were like, come whenever, change whatever. And so I did that. Yeah. I mean, baptism by fire. So yeah, I did that for a couple of years, and then moved on from those guys and went and did some stuff for Rise Haunted House in Hammond here. And then I wanted to open my own haunted house. And then, of course, getting funding for a haunted house is so hard, unless you have investors or your own money to put into it. So I kind of shifted my view and decided to try and get a booth at Transworld. And I did, and I made just a whole bunch of just stuff, just like tombs and like graves and crypts and like a big carved bird, and just all anything I could think of that I would want to bring to Transworld. And so I did that, and we went to Transworld, and literally from then on, it was like one job came after another, after another, after another, after another, and I was like, this is insane. And I was like, yeah, maybe I can actually, you know, do this and pull this off. So the first big job that I did was in Indiana for Indy Screen Park, and it was such a disaster, y'all. It was so hard. It was terrible because I was like, well, first of all, I mean, if y'all been to Transworld, you know, it's like a weekend, so you have like 3 days or something. And so they came up to the booth on like Saturday, and the show was over on Sunday, and they were like, can you sketch us out a facade tonight and then show it to us tomorrow, and then we'll set this thing up. So I went back to the hotel room and just sketched all night long. My brother was there with me, and gave it to them the next day, and they're like, yeah, let's do it. And so they, I went out there, and I was like, oh, this is going to take 7 days. This is not going to be, we can do that 7 days. And this thing was 30 feet tall. It was 115 feet, including like a sidewall. It was just a huge, huge undertaking. I think I cut out like 3,000 bricks or something like that. I ended up staying there for 9 days, and that was the very first like professional job that I ever did. And then I went to Dark Hour for probably altogether probably about 5 months. We started with, because they had oh god.
You got it. You got it.
Wait,
You
no.
got it. Come on. Yeah, it's right
Almost
there. I could see you working to get it. Come on.
Baking Monsters.
There you
Yes.
go.
But Lucy had bought this like huge like animatronic tree from those guys, and they wanted to film part of one of their episodes as being the installation of that tree. And so they brought the designers in to build some of the sets to temporarily surround that area so that they actually had something to film. So I think we were there for like 2 weeks doing that. And then I left for a little while, and then I came back, and then I was there for like 4 months or something like that. And it was a huge, that's the biggest undertaking that I think I've ever been a part of. It was such a huge, huge thing because just the space was huge, the amount of people involved was huge. And I mean, I felt after, you know, midway through, I was like, wow, I'm really, really lucky to have gotten this gig because it's a kind of a big deal, you know? I mean, it was this huge, huge haunted house extravaganza happening in Plano, Texas. And the only reason I got the job is because I think Alan Hopp saw me at Transworld and was like, that guy could be good for the cemetery section of Dark Hour. And that's the section I ended up doing, was the cemetery section. And then as things changed, I did more and more. So I ended up doing the cemetery section, the facade of Coven Manor. I did a sewer, and I did the lobby and the queue line and the stage. So it ended up being a lot more than what I initially went there to do. But it was a great experience, and it was a good learning experience. So that was it for me.
Sean Boswell would like to know, do you act in your haunt, or are you more behind the scenes haunter?
No, I acted for like 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
And, you know, having an acting background, I mean, it kind of helps. It was a little bit different because I was a singer and a dancer on stage. Wasn't really like a scary in-your-face kind of actor. But it is fun. I mean, it can grow on you really fast. But it's not something I choose to do. Like the guys at Rise, I was like, y'all get 1 acting night a year from me because I always injure myself because I'm so into it. And so, yeah, it's not my favorite part, but I will do it from time to time. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. All right, well, we're going to get right down to nitty gritty. We're going to go to Bart, and Bill's going to show some pictures, man. He's going to explain how he does stuff. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so what's going on here, Bart?
Oh, that's the haunt house here. Let me go to your picture here so I can actually, there you go. Oh yeah, that's a room that we did. I call that the cow room because when we first started it looked like a big cow. We actually, this was actually a learning experience. So I realized that I don't have to do it this way anymore. We slatted the whole room and then put some wallpaper on there and tore it a little bit and made it little areas where you can see the slats and all that. It came out really nice. I just know from now on. By the way, those are not lath. That's actually 3/8 plywood that we just ripped and that way, because the 3/8 plywood have a little bit more strength to them than lath, and knowing that people be running into them and stuff. But if you going down the hallway, the stairs actually coming out from the wall on your left, which is where the scare is. Of course, we wanted to have ceilings, but we can't have ceilings. So of course we put the beams up, and then put little stuff around the edges. That way we can kind of get away with having a ceiling, but not having a ceiling.
Now, in this picture here, Bart, is it the 3/8 plywood going all the way up, and then you put the, I don't know what they're called, but the boards going up, the little strips?
Yeah, the boards on the bottom, which is 3/8, and then all the, which looks like lath, is all 3/8 plywood ripped down.
Ah, okay, gotcha. Wow, damn, that takes a while.
Crandall McKee would like to know, how long did it take to complete the room?
We worked Thursday nights pretty much all throughout the year. So I would say that one took, because we're working on a couple other projects besides that one. So I really couldn't tell you the time difference. I know that if I just worked on that room, I would say ripping down all the plywood would be probably the longest, and then putting it on. That also had another hallway that went with that. So I would say maybe 2 days, 2 to 3 days.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah, I mean, if that was the concentration, we had nothing else going on in just that room. Yeah, it'd be that easy.
So what's this? Is this one of the hallways after that scene, or
that's the hallway? That's the hallway before it.
Oh, before it. Wow.
Yes, and that's the same thing. It's 3/8 plywood. So all I did was rip it down and do that. Of course, down in Texas, we don't have lath. We can't. We don't have that at our local hardware stores. I've noticed that ever since I moved to Tennessee and Ohio here, they have a lot of that. So that's what I've been switching to. But again, what we did with this one is took a compound joint mud, smeared it on the wall, put the strips in, and then stapled them in, and just kept going. And that actually makes the joint compound pop out like it does.
Oozy.
Yes. Oozy.
Crossbone Cemetery, I'd like to know how many people help you build these?
Right now, that you can actually see that on a Haunter's Hangout. Or not Haunter's Hangout, wow. The Haunter's Life. You can see that on Haunter's Life. You can actually see,
you can promote us, it's okay.
Right now, I actually have a crew of 7 guys.
Okay.
Or 7 guys and 1 girl. Let me make that. Or 6 guys, 1 girl. So we actually have a painter that she paints full time. That's all she does. So we have rough builders all the way to scenic artists. So we're constantly busy all the time. But at that point in time, I would say we probably had about 3 or 4 guys at the haunted house that were constantly there.
Oh, I got quiet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect.
I have more questions. Bob Kowal would like to know, does costuming inspire set details or vice versa?
I would say I do the sets first, and then I figure out the costumes after that.
Okay.
Gosh, this picture here is just amazing.
I don't know. Phil's just going through.
Sorry. I know.
Not saying nothing, but they're going through.
This actually scene was because the facade made it look like we had a 2-story building, so a lot of people thought they went upstairs. And so let's build a stairwell that's all crashed in, and it looks like we do have a 2nd floor. You just can't get up to it.
Oh, so this is more of a crashed look?
Yeah.
The
ceiling's caved in.
I was going to say, why is a chandelier right in the center of a stairwell?
Right. The ceiling is definitely caved in.
Yeah, okay.
I love that room.
Wow, look at that.
That's the kitchen. If they come into this room, they will. This is the only, I guess you would call it a guardrail, which is what majority of old haunts have. We actually have a guardrail. If to the very right of the picture is the pantry area, we actually have a guardrail in front of that because we actually had an actor in the middle of the room that would mess with you. But the actual scare came from that pantry door right there because the wood was slatted up and down like this, so you couldn't tell where the door was, and then they slam it open, and the whole room would shift at that point.
Wow.
Linda Marshall would like to know, do you include lighting, sound in your set designs, or does somebody else work with you on that?
I have a guy named Liam who also the guy that does my CAD design. He's the one that does all the lighting and sound. We actually did employ somebody that just sound last year in the haunted schoolhouse and laboratory. It's a haunted house that's been around since 1974. And they had a lot of old stuff, so we wanted to update it. So we had to update all the sound and everything like that. So we had a guy that specifically last year did all our sound for us.
Wow!
But in my haunt, I did my own sound.
There you go. How long did it take to like do that whole room? I see there's a lot of detail in it. I see there's a lot of
that room has been updated, I think, 3 times. So that was one of the original rooms of the haunt house. And I actually did have a lot of blood with that room. I was trying to take a lot of the blood out of the room. So I had to change up a lot of stuff. We added a lot of stuff. I couldn't tell you the time frame on that because it's been updated 3 times. So, but I mean, it's basically, you got plywood on the bottom, you got wallpaper on it. You got 2 little shelves that we built out of plywood. This is the pantry's built out of a fence panel. We acquired the stuff, and I would say the ceiling is what probably took the longest.
Mm-hmm.
So how much of that would you say is faux painting, and how much of it is lighting?
There's actually no faux painting in that room at all. It's wallpaper along with just distressing with paint and water.
Now I know your method, but I know other people might not. Now, when you distress and you were talking about paint and water, do you use brushes? Do you use squirt bottles? All that sort of stuff.
It all depends on how thick I want it, or if I want it in a specific area, I'll use a watered down brush. Yep. Or mainly if I'm like I had to do last year, which was distress a whole haunt within a week's period because we had to open. I go through with bottles or pump sprayers of watered down different colors and go through and water down the whole wall first, and then go back and then start spraying and letting it drip and just kind of going with the flow and seeing what looks good and what doesn't. Just got to remember it dries lighter. So you want to put it on heavy because that's the biggest mistake you'll make with that is that it dries lighter.
Oh, so you water it down and then you hit it with the wash?
Yeah, what you do is you water down you water down the wall, and then you hit it with the water and paint to mix together. And again, if you want to, just got to remember it dries lighter. So you want to hit it a little heavy, and then it'll dry a little lighter. So you just got to remember that when you're putting it on.
Oh, nice.
Bart, one other question when you were mentioning the guardrail scenes. How effective have you seen that to be? Like, I've never gone through a haunt myself that's had that. Have you had good success doing scenes like that?
The guardrail, I normally don't like. The only reason why we put that there that was the only scene we had it in. Okay. was because that door slammed so hard, and I didn't want anybody to be in the way of that. I mean, that door flew. We had chains on it. It hit the metal that was behind, on the other side of the door to make that loud bang. And so that's the only reason why I had that guardrail there, was because of that. Normally it's an old school type of haunting. I usually don't do the guardrails. The haunted schoolhouse and laboratory, Verdun Manor had it. I think they started taking it out, but I mean, haunted house and laboratory had it. We went ahead and took them all out to immerse people into the scenes. I think you get better reactions when you immerse people into scenes instead of walking by like they're looking at an exhibit.
Yep. Now what's going on in this picture here?
Okay, that one is when I actually came up here and actually met John. That's the first time I was up here helping Canfield, up in Canfield, Blood Moon Farm, and she wanted doors to hell. And I mean, this is a night. I mean, this is like, here, you know, can you make us doors to hell? And literally, they gave us some plywood. They had that is actually plastic bones, like you would get at a dollar store or something like that. And those are, I think, one of them's like those are sheets. I think one of them's actually a My Little Pony sheet.
So good. Door to hell.
Like kid sheets, you know, and so yeah, we all scrunched it up together and we hit it with some concrete and painted it, and it came out like that. It actually, I mean, the picture before this looked so cartoony before we hit it with the concrete. It was pretty funny.
Nice.
That's all that is just fun bones, just the like little, just terrible plastic skeleton bones and kid sheets.
Yeah,
So yeah,
it's amazing what you can make.
yeah.
All right, we're going to move over to John and show some pictures from him and let him explain what he went through.
Oh, this is on our hayride trail. It's a voodoo shack, and really a lot of that wood is just naturally aged. Fortunately, we actually had planking like that sitting out on the property, but it did get, you know, like Bart was talking about, the watered down and washing with a couple darker colors. This is actually an area where they stop at typically, and there's a scene that goes on. An actor's usually sitting on that trunk off to the left side, and they're starting to warn them in some fashion about the next part of the hayride that they're going to see. Typically, that fire extinguisher is a little better hidden, but you know, things.
It was funny. I didn't even notice it till you said something.
Oh, geez, I'm giving myself away now. But
did you paint that on there? Because that looks real.
Is the next scene fire?
Yeah.
A lot of the bones and jars and stuff are just things that we found, sprayed up, dirtied, aged spray paints and stuff like that. Some of them actually glow with a fluorescent paint. Yeah. And then
I really love this room, man.
Oh, thank you. This is actually that room I was talking about earlier, where the boss is like, figure something out, and this is what I came up with. I sat in there for a while and put on some music and pictured it out in my head. You know, like Bart was saying, that the lat work behind those panels is just ripped down plywood, mostly for time's sake, but took some other plywood, put it over it. Like the white areas are actually an outer sheet of plywood to give more of a depth feature, and took in my best friend in this is actually amber shellac.
Like kids, like really.
I love this stuff. The ceiling was fun. I was covered in joint compound for, I don't know, days.
Oh no.
Yeah, I would literally take my trowel, put some joint compound on it, and shoot it with different colors and spots and stick it up there, and then spray bottles, watered down spray bottles after it started to set just a little bit, because if you hit it too soon, it drips way too much.
Yeah.
Linda Marshall would like to know, when doing your outdoor scenes, what would you recommend besides lighting to enhance the scene?
Ooh, good actor. I mean, I rely a lot on that. I don't know. In our haunt, there's a good bit of distance between each of the sets, so you kind of get a little bit of downtime to think about, or to forget about the last thing, and move on to the next one. And ambient sound, but not you set it farther back so that it doesn't sound like it has an origin. Sure. You want it set farther back so that it's just all around you. That's an old sewing machine we found.
I was gonna ask, did you make that?
Yeah, I cast the iron myself, and that was a process right there. That surfaced in one of the storage trailers. I was going through the trailer one day, and it was there buried behind some stuff, and I'm like, hey, this can go in that room, you know. As far as the holes and stuff in the wall, I had a masonry hammer, and just kind of beat the crap out of the plywood, and then would run joint compound over it and paint it up and let it all drip and ooze down.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Ceilings. I don't know what it is about ceilings, but I like them. They're fun, and I like it when they're collapsing. And this is very well lit, but when during operation, I just took and blacked out the actual ceiling in that, and it disappears. It looks like you're staring into a dark attic if you look up. And all of that is just old planking that we had covered in joint compound and various layers upon layers of paints and stains from a spray bottle.
That turned out really good.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you.
Courtney would like to know, what has been your biggest challenge in haunting?
For me personally, giving up the acting aspect of it. I was an actor for 13 years, and in the later years, I got to move up to like more line entertainment, character development, and stuff like that, where I'm not just scaring, but I have a fully fleshed out character that, you know, gives up, or that gives a little bit more to the crowd. That's it's hard. I know that's kind of unrelated to what we're talking about right now, but that was the giving up and moving on to something different that I wasn't necessarily comfortable with. You put me in a costume and I'm completely fine, but this whole set design and all of that is such new territory for me that I'm constantly fighting with the struggle of self-doubt, and is this good enough? How does it look? You know?
Well, it's looking pretty good, damn it.
Oh, well, thank you. Like I said, the last year was a trial by fire. It really was. And I'm glad and quite happy with how a majority of it turned out. But I always, even in off season, I'm looking at stuff. I'm like, okay, how can I improve this room or that room? What can we do to change it up a little bit?
So did you guys make this organ in this picture right here?
No, that is. Oh man, I wish I could remember the company that came from. It's been around probably 12 years, circling throughout different haunts. Its original home, I believe, was 7 Floors of Hell in the House of Nightmares. Got put in a storage for a while, and again, it was another one of those things. Walking through the trailer one day, and hey, this, you know, I think my boss pointed it out, and he's like, "Why doesn't that go in the front room?" And I was like, "Okay, good point."
Right. Looks really good.
Yeah, it does.
We've got our little sign-in book there. Sometimes every actor that's worked in this house has signed the guest book for the mortuary, and our front room person, the caretaker of the facility, will sometimes give.
What the heck was that?
we'll make that face, and it's effective. But he'll give special guest pens and stuff like that so they can sign it as well.
Oh, that's cool. All right, we're gonna move on to Kenneth and show some pictures of his.
Great.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Oh goodness.
Wow.
Is this all those bricks you were talking about cutting?
No.
Oh.
This is at Massacre Haunted House in Montgomery, Illinois. I think it's maybe 30 minutes outside of Chicago. And we had like 2 days left on the project, and he had this space, and he wanted to put something like this there. And he had these massive blocks of foam. And so I said, well, let's just cut this foam up and see what happens. And that's what we got.
It's like so simple. We just cut some foam up. There you go.
Well, it wasn't part of like the plan. It wasn't planned. Like this wasn't part of the reason why I was there. You know, this was like an extra. We finished early, and he needed something to fill the space, and he wanted something kind of jungle-y because the whole area around this was going to be turned into a jungle. And so, yeah, we did that.
Yeah, it looks
Well,
really-
that moss detail.
How tall is that? Do you know?
I don't remember. Maybe 12 feet.
Shoo.
Not incredibly tall, but taller than a regular wall, you know?
That's a lot of foam.
Yeah.
It's a lot of foam. It was a lot of foam. And we didn't have any like hot wire cutters.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the one that he had wasn't big enough to cut the size foam that he had. So we had to cut everything by hand, which was a pain in the butt and took forever. But you do what you got to do sometimes, you know?
Is
Debbie-
it hollow in the middle, or did you like block all the way around?
We built a frame, so the area that the face is built onto, that's built onto just a frame that we sheeted and then glued all of the bricks on around. But everything from the like where the dude's head ends downwards is all just solid foam.
Wow.
Because eventually he wanted to cut a hole through the middle of this for the people to go through. So we left it solid.
Debbie Wright would like to know, how did you distress this?
This is when we sprayed it. We sprayed it with like a stucco mixture. And this is when I was still using the paint and the water technique that we were talking about earlier. So it was literally the same thing. We just used those Hudson sprayers, you know, those pumper things, and then wet the entire thing down, and then just came back with another sprayer that had watered down black and then green paint in it, and used that, sprayed the paint on, and then used the water to make it run wherever, you know, it would naturally run.
Mike Ross would like to know, what did you use to glue the foam?
For this, normally I would use a bucket of FRP adhesive, a Type-Bond FRP adhesive, because it works really well, and it doesn't melt the foam. What I found is that if liquid nails can sometimes melt the foam over time, which is really weird, but it happens. But for that Mayan head thing, we did use liquid nails. We used about the only thing that he would get, the owner, he didn't want to get the tubs of liquid nails, so he bought the tubes.
Oh my gosh.
It literally hundreds and hundreds of tubes. I remember we took a picture and put it up on Facebook of just a mile-long line of these liquid nails tubes. So yeah, we use liquid nails for that.
You got that monster grip now, don't you?
Yeah. If you can use a pail of glue, it's so much better, because with those tubes, you're doing this constantly. You know, sometimes more than one tube for one piece of foam, and it's so much easier just to be able to dip in with a trowel, you know?
Right. Oh, this picture's beautiful right here.
That's the booth, one of the booths at Transworld. I think that was 2015, maybe 2015, 2016. I'm really not sure, but that's one of the Transworld booths.
Yeah, I see you use the brick, the lath, the wallpaper, and the board. They got the whole
yeah, it's like 3 layers. So there's the lathes, which in this case is just the thin plywood cut into strips, and then on top of that is like a tri-ply kind of underlayment, and then on top of that is the it's actually fabric, not wallpaper. I found.
Yeah, Jose, get it together.
Sorry.
Yeah, fabric is usually cheaper than wallpaper, believe it or not, especially if you can find like a huge like king size bedspread at Goodwill or something, because then you have a, you know, you spend $10 on it and you have a ton of fabric because you have a huge bedspread to work with. And I have found that wallpaper can be a little bit on the expensive side sometimes.
Matt Burke would like to know, how do you light your sets?
We use like little LED, not pin spots. Well, pin spots sometimes, but LED things that we've actually make them. We find that sometimes buying LED spots can be really expensive. And Amazon has some really, really great options for lighting. But we buy on Amazon, you can buy packs of LED lights that are pre-wired, and they're like they're ready to go. They have whatever, like what do you call it? It has like a little amp thing on it. Not
the
necessarily.
resistor. You got the resistor.
Yeah. So you can get a huge pack of these LED bulbs that are all ready to go, and you just have to attach them to a 12-volt source. So using those and wiring them up in 3 or 4 bunches, and then using a piece of PVC as a housing, and then a little Coke cap fits into the end of the PVC, and then you can put some holes into the Coke cap, and then hook your little lights through, and then you have a little spotlight.
Oh, I didn't realize you was responsible for the lighting too.
Not all the time. No, not all the time. For this one, yeah, the lighting. We did the lighting for this and for some of the rooms that were after this because the lighting was so specific. Those had to be lit in a certain way so that it didn't look like feet from Amazon attached to a wall painted black,
Looks like we lost Phil.
Oh no. All right. Well.
Oh, he is gone.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's okay.
I was over there searching. I'm like, wait.
I was looking for the picture.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Right.
where's that picture?
All right. Well, we're okay because I'm still here.
Hi.
I have a question for you. Courtney would like to know what your favorite part of building is.
For me?
Yes.
Probably easier to tell you my least favorite part. No.
Do that too.
My favorite part of building is I think that time between when it's finished in a pristine state and before it becomes all distressed and disgusting, because that's when you see a huge change, and that's when it really kind of becomes what you see in your mind.
Sure.
So, like that room with the feet has all that tile on the wall, and it's really satisfying to see that go from a really clean white environment to what it looks like there, gross and dirty and stuff. That's a very satisfying part of the build.
So what's the least favorite that you were
All of
talking
it.
about?
No, my least favorite is going to be, it depends. It would be loading in supplies, if you're on a site and you have to like unload 300 2x4s or 2x3s and 47 sheets of plywood, 70 buckets of glue. That's
Sure.
the worst part.
Right.
That's just like, even if you have the stuff delivered to the site, you got to take that stuff inside so no one steals it or it doesn't get rained on or anything like that. That's definitely my least favorite part.
Yes. Especially if you're 3 floors up like Bert.
I'm not. Yeah, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be doing some escape rooms in New Jersey, and it's on the 2nd floor. So I'll be there with you. I'll be thinking of you.
So Ken, what's going on in this picture here?
The feet?
Yeah.
It's part of a morgue. So this is like the freezer part of the morgue, and then the next room was the morgue itself. This was like the easiest thing ever. It was just, those are feet that I bought from Amazon, and then had some sheets that we had ripped up and dyed yellow because fabric kind of yellows over time a little bit. And then we just built fake, like things that the bodies would be sitting on. And
I was trying to think of the name of them too, but I can't. Are they just plywood or?
it's all wood. All of it's plywood. And it really, I mean, we did paint it silver, but it really didn't matter because once it was done, we put snow and ice all over the whole thing. So it kind of covered that up. But yeah, it's all wood. And when the lights are off inside of that haunt, it's much more convincing because you can't tell that it's just a black wall right there. It just looks like it goes on and on, kind of like the ceiling he was talking about earlier. You know, when the lights are off, you can do a lot. You can fool the eye when the lights are off.
I'm guessing this is at one of the. Oh, is this Trans World?
No, this was for the Halloween and Party Expo, which was in New Orleans. It's been in New Orleans for the past 2 years, but this was the first year that they were in New Orleans, and they wanted to do some sort of facade or items in the registration area that kind of brought the New Orleans feel to it. So initially it was going to be a huge facade that went across the entire front of the show, which was way too big and expensive. So it was whittled down into doing these above ground tombs, which are just, I mean, it's just plywood and foam and some concrete and paint. That's pretty much it.
Wow.
I still have them actually.
Cool.
Oh, this is cool.
Fun.
Yeah, what is this?
I like that.
This, well, it's not a haunt. This is at the Escape. So this is my escape game. We have an alien themed game. It's called Alien Encounter, and this is one of the rooms inside of that game. And
Would you make? Did you paint all the yellow and black? Everything in
yes.
that?
Yeah,
wow.
everything in there. Everything in there is made from scratch. The little map in the background I had to make from scratch. The boxes. So inside of each one of those boxes mounted to the wall are some of them have face huggers in them, and some of them have the chest bursters inside of them. And then yeah, I mean, it was all done by me. And that for the Alien Encounter game I did pretty much alone. I had some help hanging the sheetrock on the ceilings and putting together. What are y'all laughing at?
Because Phil put a sign up, said, "Hi, Mom."
Oh no.
Yeah, so that's at the Escape game.
Oh, very cool. All right, we're gonna move over to Bart and show some more pictures and of his stuff and Phil's. Yeah, see, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh,
That is
like a bayou?
Yeah, that is at North Thrillers in Tennessee. Basically, what I did was I just revamped what the scene they had already. Again, it was most of the stuff was already there, or I picked up off the property and just added to it. Back there, where you see all the old wood and stuff, that was just OSB that was there. So I painted that, covered it up with the old wood that they had sitting on the property. Moved the boat around, propped it up, put a lot of stuff in the middle. That way, when they had to go around, they went around the back of it and came that way. So that way they couldn't see on either side of the room that we built there.
See this, Jamie? That's what I was talking about.
I see that.
Yeah, he can just throw stuff together.
Good job.
Make it look awesome. Just throw stuff. Look, the chair over there. Just like we wouldn't think about putting no chairs and shit. Just like he just throws it all together, makes it look badass.
It is awesome. And I watched the YouTube video where you built this, and it looks so easy. It's like, yeah, I threw this here, and I put this here, and I put this here, and you too can do it. I'm like, no, I couldn't.
Yeah. I was like, really? I feel so insignificant now. Thank you.
Did it happen to do it for you?
You have too much faith in me.
So, Bart, is this one of the new scenes that you built here?
This was actually the very first scene that we built at the Haunted Schoolhouse and Haunted Laboratory. This was actually a 3D clown area that we went ahead and took out. And we actually themed this out where it actually flows together. So as they come into the the auditorium here. They come up onto the stairs, they walk around, and they go right next to the victim. But you got that room right there. Those doors actually really work, even though they're stationary. But they go. That's actually prepping room to bring them out into the surgical auditorium. So you actually go through that, and then you'll go through another hallway, which actually brings you to the cooler, which is where they get the bodies out of, to bring them to the prep room, to bring them in. So I actually really themed this one out. But yeah, this was the very first room that we built. Actually, I think it was about almost a year ago we finished.
I remember watching you build this, but I don't think I ever seen the finished product.
Yeah, so it turned out really nicely. I'm still not happy with it. There's still a lot of props and stuff I still want to put in there. Last year we bit off way more than we could chew. We almost revamped that whole haunt and revamped the whole property along with doing everything else. And we literally had to. It was just run and put. And again, there was a lot more props that I wanted to put in here. Again, being the haunted schoolhouse and laboratory, there's a lot of scenes that they don't match. They don't flow. There's a lot you go from one scene to the next and it's just no. So for me to fix that, I went ahead and changed the storyline of the schoolhouse into you walking. This is the library. You actually walk in through a book. So that way the scenes that you have will make sense. Well, now that we're tearing out the whole third floor, I'm actually having 3 or 4 scenes that are the same. And then you start walking through pages again. And then you go into 3 or 4 other scenes and then you walk through pages. So the storyline works. It starts flowing now. But this is the book that's half done.
That's a great idea, actually.
Mm-hmm. I'm really excited. I haven't gotten to see the laboratory since it's been remodeled. I remember going to it as a child. It's right around the corner from me.
Yeah,
wow.
It's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun up there. It's the second haunt that's built in 1974 that I got to work in. So it's pretty cool. I just got one more to work. I go to Niles Haunted House, and I've done all 3.
Nice.
This is the prep room I was talking about. They come around the corner, and they come to the prep room. We got, again, we did prop placement. They keep an eye on that the zombie lady there and the actual actors in the cabinet. So, but again, this was a again, I like a little bit of blood. I don't like too much blood. They had way too much blood in this room. They actually had a sharpening wheel. They had big machinery stuff up on this. This is the second floor, and I don't know how they got it up there because we were like, "How are we going to get this down?" So if you go through the haunted schoolhouse or the laboratory and you see a cabinet. We built that because we didn't want to take whatever was there down. So we built it.
Oh gosh,
we put it in the corner and built a cabinet. So
sometimes it's easier to build around something that you don't want to fool with.
Right.
I've been there, done it.
Hey, now Bart, I have a question in regards to like a pop-out scare.
Yes.
For example, the closet thing that you were talking about there. Now, say you have patrons who come through 1 year. They now know where that scare is.
Correct.
Do you try to change that up, or is it like, do you try to plan your room ahead of time to have a different location for them to scare each year, or? Go ahead.
I would say that normally you have, and again, this has been done. I've talked to, I would say 13th floor. I've talked to them, and they have a real big scope on as far as acting or patrons coming through, and you actually. I would say maybe 10% of your customers that year are going to come back the next year. They're going to go to different haunted houses and then come back maybe the year after or 3 years down the line.
Okay.
So again, but believe it or not, there's a lot of people that were upset that we were changing stuff.
Because they had their eyes closed. That's why the first time around.
No, talk about they were upset that we were actually making changes, that we were changing stuff that, because it's such an iconic haunt. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to ride that fine line of changing certain things, but keeping certain things because of the iconic value of that place.
Sean Boswell would like to know, do the haunts let you go in and design how you want, or do you have to go off their plans and brainstorms?
This one, I basically we draw out a whole plan and go, John, this is what we want to do. And John's like, all right. With Dark Hour, it was Alan Hops coming to me and goes, I want something grand, or I want to do, he kind of said what he wants to do, but never really told me exactly what he wanted. And so I would draw something up, and that's what we would do. Like the big example is the 16-foot clock that I have in Dark Hour. He told me he just wanted something big and grand, something that was iconic to Dark Hour, which is the clock. So I came in. I mean, he didn't even know. I just showed him a picture of what I was going to do. He didn't really know how big it was going to be until I came in with the number 6 part of the clock, the pie shape, which was 8 foot tall. And he kind of just was like, "Holy crap, is that going to fit?" So yeah, I mean, no, I've had some people basically say, "Hey, I want to do this," but they never specifically said we got to have this or this or this or that. Now, there's the clock. So
ask and you shall receive. Woo.
Yes.
Where is that clock? Where is it at in the haunt? Is it in the haunt or is it outside?
It's in the haunt. It's after the bedroom scene. Where they had the
witch's bedroom.
Yeah, after the witch's bedroom scene was where that was at.
It's enormous.
Yeah, it's actually right behind your facade that you have up front that you built.
The witch's cabin?
Yes, it's right behind it.
Cool.
So
it's awesome.
Yeah. It was a fun build. That's actually built out of 1x4s and plywood.
See, they make everything just sound. It's just plywood, 2x4.
Yeah,
it's just plywood, 1x4s. Do it. There you go.
And magic.
1x4s, plywood is the frame, and then plexiglass behind it.
Wow.
Oh, I get it. We're looking at the back, right?
Say what?
We're looking at it from the back.
No, you're looking at. Well, yeah. You're basically inside the clock tower.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
It took a second. I was like, oh, yeah.
The numbers are backwards.
Yeah, I got it.
This one's for Factory of Terror. We did a Christmas. Actually, did I think their first Christmas haunt this year, and they needed a photo op for everybody to take. So this is where I drew them out, and I think I got another picture of actually the finished product, which is right there. So that's not finished, but I mean it's there. The fireplace and all that's all out of foam, and yeah, of course, slats and wallpaper and.
What are those trees made out of behind to the right there?
Oh,
I was like, seriously? No, really?
I don't know. I just saw a tree. I was like, oh, what's a tree? Sorry. No, not the Christmas tree. The big, like wooden tree.
Pine needle.
Sorry.
And
let me refrain that. Sorry.
I was like, seriously?
Scott from Factory of Terror, he actually built those.
Okay.
So I think it was a lot of plaster with jute behind it. So he did like chicken wire, then jute, and then did some plaster on top of it.
Okay, now how did you make that Christmas tree? I'm just kidding.
That Christmas tree is actually from the haunted schoolhouse. They used to have a big banquet room, so we actually pulled all the Christmas trees out and brought them up to the factory.
Right. Hey, I wish I had talent like that. Hey, Bart, I got a good question for you. Is like when you guys do all your foam and brick work and you tear the stuff down, how do you keep how do you transport it or anything without damaging all the brickwork? What do you do?
We hard coat everything.
With what?
With I usually use Portland cement and Type Bond 2 glue.
Hold on, let me write that
down. That's the cheapest way we do it right now. You can spray it on with a hopper.
All right, so the Portland cement and what?
Portland cement, Type Bond 2 glue, along with water, you know, to get it all into a nice pancake mix, and then spray it through a hopper.
I feel like I should be writing this down because Jose is writing it down.
I'm writing it down, man. You know, because all my haunts, like, it's always transporting, and by the time it gets there, there's like damaged parts to it.
Everybody watching, make sure you write this down. It is very important.
There will be a test later.
Yes.
So, what's the mixture of the cement and the tight bond?
If you do a 5-gallon bucket, I usually do either a third or a half of a gallon of Type Bond 2 glue. And again, you mix in the concrete and the water, and you get that pancake batter that you can shoot through with the hopper. There's no actual formula to it. I just do by feel.
Sweet.
Which is the problem with most of my stuff, because I have a lot of people go, "What's the formula?" There's no formula. I don't have a formula. I just put it in there.
Well, don't be mad if like a couple of them scenes end up in my hunt. So
we'd be disappointed with you if they didn't.
Right. Got to do it. All right, we're gonna move over to John and show some more pictures of John's. I'm already copying some of John's stuff. So.
This is actually another angle of the first room of our mortuary, and I don't know, man. It's a lot of the plywood doing the lats behind it that are ripped down from more plywood. And again, wetting the walls down, spraying it, taking a step back, looking at it, and just toying with it till you're happy. You know?
And then you just randomly rip that wallpaper and
yeah. I mean, pretty much you take that. Actually started off as just all plain plywood, and take a skill saw or drill a hole, skill saw out a hole, put lats in behind it, joint compound, smooth it over some of the areas and let it drip, and this, that, and the other. Fabric, upholstery and stuff like that's really easy to stain up. Just regular paints and wood stains go a long way.
I gotta admit, I really like to touch with the fire extinguisher.
Hey, look, if you know, if a fire breaks out, they are in plain view.
I know exactly.
Kareen would like to know, where do you get your wallpaper?
Various surplus type places. There's a place over in Barberton that we get a lot of it from. It's just around. You look, you know. I believe the stuff on the ceiling was from the internet somewhere. I'm constantly on different websites looking at stuff, trying to find older vintage things and the like. There's, you know, this is all mostly newer stuff. It's just reproduced, and a lot of times you can find it decently cheap if it doesn't sell well. And some of this stuff, you know, that looks good in a haunt doesn't necessarily translate to good wallpaper for home. So wait, sit on it for a while, and it usually comes down in price. This is the casket room, and we typically actually have a fourth robed individual in there that sits on those church pews, and it's kind of a guessing game for the customers which one's the real person, if there is one, you know. So this was a bit of a random desk hallway type thing. It turns into an office, and as you're coming down the previous hallway, you trip a sensor, a bright light flashes, and you get a gunshot sound. And once you enter the room, you see that the guy literally offed himself right before you walked into the room. Newspaper clippings and stuff on the wall. Just and trying to keep it thematic for an old rundown mortuary. You've got some anatomy charts and whatnot throughout the whole process, or throughout the
I
whole
love that
place.
picture. That picture above his head.
Oh, the operating
surgery?
scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where did you find that?
That's another. That's yes. No, that's an online find. And that's actually, like, I believe, a poster that we took and went thrift shopping for old photo frames, and took and put the busted out the glass and put the poster in behind it and laid a mat over top of it to make it look a little more official.
That's a great find.
Right, it is.
Brian Pratt would like to know, are your rooms portable or permanent?
For this location, they're all permanent. They're all framed in directly into the building itself. We can to some degree take down and change things if we need to. When you get a sawzall involved, but for the most part, this is a permanent location
with the sawzall.
Yes, 2 hands, always 2 hands. Otherwise you end up with some nasty cuts. This room is actually partly taken apart. There's typically an autopsy table from the 1940s in here with a ghost ride body on it. But this is part of the actual what's the name of it? Like an autopsy operation area. And behind those doors, you actually circle around through the doorway on the left there and end up in that freezer room after a series of short hallways, twists and turns and whatnot.
What are the walls made of? There's been some questions. Paneling of some sort?
Yeah, that's a fake tile panel.
Sure.
And then I took, again, joint compound and rubbed it into the where the grout would normally be to help the color stick to those specific areas. And as it started to set, I'd whitewash or wipe it off of the actual tile pieces themselves. And then once it dried, go through and hit it with, this is, again, a lot of amber shellac.
Neat.
It has a really almost like nicotine or old growth, mold growth.
That was going to be my next question. What did you stain the walls with?
Yeah, some rattle cans of spray paint for some of the darker areas, and amber shellac, honestly. And then taking, if I hit it with spray paint, immediately wiping away to leave it only in the creases. And then again, some of the areas are like in that upper corner, that's just watered down black paint from a spray bottle, finessing it a little bit.
Where did you find the stuff in the room, like these machines you have? I just find it really hard to source authentic medical equipment like that.
There's a large company near us in Cleveland that they essentially buy all kinds of everything from filing cabinets. When a business goes into liquidation sales, I think it's like I want to say HGR or something like that. They have a huge warehouse of just anything and everything you can think of. I mean, I guess for people to look up, try finding a vendor that actually buys all of their stuff from liquidation sales. You can get everything from old broken down drill presses to medical electrical equipment and stuff like that. It's more of a local thing. I love Sour Patch Kids, although tropical is not really my jam.
No.
Right. All right, we're gonna move over to Ken and show some more of his pictures.
Sorry, I'm just being a smart ass after showing some pics.
Oh, nice. I love this one.
Oh yeah, that's also at the escape game. That's the engine room for the alien encounter game. So that's the first room that they have to get out of in order to move forward.
How'd you make the what is that? Is that all real metal conduit things, or are they plastic?
It is, yeah.
Romex.
Yeah. I kind of took inspiration from the Matrix. You know those things that fly around and like attach themselves to the ship. Those
Sentinels.
Yeah. So that was kind of the inspiration for that thing hanging from the ceiling, and they actually have to lower that. It starts out really high, and they have to lower it all the way down so that they can push that little button in the middle, and then the all of that stuff on the wall over here is it's foam packaging. So like if you buy a TV or
oh my god, I so use everything I I do the same thing. Doesn't look
I mean
good, though,
I had so much of it hanging around from the game because we use a lot of TVs and sound equipment, and so it all comes packaged in this foam that already looks really cool. So I just glued it to the walls and painted it and put some lights on it, and it looks great. I love the way it looks. I like finding use for something that you would probably throw away, and that was a perfect scenario.
Nice. Hey, Jamie, make sure you send me all their photos.
I will, but I have a finder's fee.
This is part of a larger boiler room scene at Brighton Asylum in New Jersey, and unfortunately, in August we're tearing out all of this stuff and putting in a huge. I know.
Oh my god!
Jose says just send it to him and he won't have to copy it.
But I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna try and save as much of it as we can and use it in his Saw-themed escape room. But yeah, so that's part of a larger boiler room scene. That's just brick paneling from Home Depot and some PVC, and all of it's wood. We just cut everything out of wood and painted it and distressed it using wood stain and the lovely shellac. I love shellac. Yeah. It's a great thing.
Yeah, and it's awesome. It's like how detailed you get with it, because you got like the little bricks that fell off on the side. It's just like really just like makes it too.
That was just yeah. It does help. Those we just took from outside. This is the same space. So that boiler thing we saw is on the back side of this wall that we're looking at right now. And we were just trying to switch up the kind of boilers that were in this boiler room. Instead of having all like brick boilers with mortar, we tried to go for like an aged copper kind of situation here with what did we use? Oh, like Rust-Oleum hammered copper paint. That stuff is really great. Any of that Rust-Oleum hammered stuff is really good. And then painting it with that, and then going over it with black, and then going over it with a watered down mixture of white paint and blue paint and some green paint to give it that patina kind of look. That's what that is.
Man, that's awesome.
What'd you use for all the rivets and stuff like that? Or are they actually screws?
It's a broom handle.
Nice.
Wow.
Seriously, it is. It's just a broom handle that we had that broke earlier that week. And so I saved it and we cut it into individual rivets. What's really interesting is that this whole set is built up. I think it's built 5 feet up off the ground. Wow. So all of the actors they're underneath all of this stuff. They're fooling with people from the ground up. So it's higher. So this is all on a huge platform, and the actors come from under and from kind of the sides too. That's what you can't tell in the photo, is that it's built up really high off the ground, the whole thing.
Jeez. Wow.
This is also at Brighton Asylum. This is like part of a kitchen scene that was part of a larger cabin area that he has there. He's very clever with his theming, because the first time that I went there, the way he explained the backstory of the haunt is that you're in this asylum, and the idea is that you're traveling through all of the patients' delusions and fears, which allowed him to have many, many, many different themed scenes that had nothing to do with an asylum. You know, so it made he could get away with doing like a clown maze in an asylum because you would first go through that patient's room and then enter into that patient's delusion of reality.
That's so cool.
I'm pretty sure this room comes with a staph infection.
Yeah, this was this is the room after. There's a facade, and then there's like a living room area, and then there's a kitchen, and then it keeps going. But this was the kitchen section.
Wow, that's crazy.
And it was all built from scratch. I mean, like none of that. We didn't buy any cabinets or anything like that. We built all of that from the ground up. This is part of his morgue, which we did the first time that I was on Haunters Hangout when we had that terrible, terrible connection. This is the set we were working on while we were there.
I love the broken window in the back.
Yeah, the whole broken window thing, I don't know where in the world I got the idea from, but I was like, oh no, I know where I got it from. I went through 13th Gate, and they have at the time it was new, but they have a Jack the Ripper kind of section, and they have a like an apothecary thing where there's a huge window and it sits at an angle. And I thought it was really cool, so I did a smaller version of that here. And then those are it's all tile paneling that you can get at like Home Depot. And then I use wood stain to do the tiles. So basically the same concept that he was talking about earlier with the spray paint, but I use wood stain, so paint it on really heavy and then wipe off all of the excess so that you get some nice darker areas in between the tiles. And I mean, I use a lot of wood stain. I use paint to distress things if it's stuff that is supposed to have been outside, like cemeteries or like a asylum facade or a hospital facade. I would use more paint. But for interiors, especially like this kind of thing, I think wood stain is better. I just feel like it looks more natural. It has a translucent quality about it, which I just find looks a bit more realistic than paint. But
what's your favorite like wood stain colors that you use?
Provincial. So there's two. Provincial is a lighter color, and then dark walnut is darker. So I use them together, starting with the provincial and then going to the dark walnut. This is the facade of that asylum I was just talking about, and we reused pretty much his existing facade. We just redid the entire thing. So it's all.
So is this a room of the haunt, or is this like where the queue line starts?
No, the queue line is kind of where you are looking at the picture. So if you're looking at this, you're in the queue line, if that makes sense. But this was in 2014, and a lot of this haunt has changed since then. But this is all just styrofoam and then I think for this project we used thin set, like what you would put between your tiles at home. We used a hopper to spray the whole thing with thin set and then painted it, and voila!
Beautiful, beautiful.
Wow. Yes,
it is. All right, we're gonna move over to the Bart over there.
Bill, you're gonna get fired.
I was like, I was not responsible for that face. I can't tell you how to make that.
It's pretty ugly, so I know.
You need to start by eating ice cream out of a tub.
Yes. Ken, you're becoming my best friend. There we go. So Bart, what's going on here?
I just thought I'd be quiet.
Just threw the whole thing off.
This is part of the lab. Basically, we got some couple of guys that are changing and all that in the room. We got a lot of plants, a lot of there's a plant monster there in the back that'll actually shoot water at you. I got it basically where the actor can hit you from either side in this room. They can either hit you through the plants or underneath from the tables. And basically it was just I'm not gonna lie. This was, oh my gosh, we got to get open. Let's do this room because we have all this stuff.
Another reason why we hate you.
Yes.
Took 5 minutes.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it came together. It's I would say okay. Yeah, I wish I had more time to do some stuff on this, but there's always next year.
This scene kind of gives me an idea with the bushes on the right there, is having like almost like a pop open scare where somebody's hiding inside there, and then
yes,
there's
actually they go underneath that table right there on your right. Actually, on the left is where they actually come through the bushes.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Oh.
I recognize that guy.
Yeah. Unit 70, gotta love them. This was an actually existing scene that they had. It was a huge scene. We broke it up into 2 scenes then. One was the picture that you just saw just a minute ago, and this is the other side. We just took a lot of their existing stuff and rearranged the room because, again, you walk by this room. You didn't actually walk in the room. So we actually make it where you actually got to walk around the back seat of this guy. The actor's actually behind that curtain there. And then you actually have to walk into a secret bookcase where you go in between the walls and there's a drop panel.
Sean Boswell would like to know, how do you keep the patrons from messing with all the details in your rooms?
Keep them entertained with the actors. Yeah, keep the actors on them, and they don't have time to mess with anything. If your actor's doing what they're supposed to be doing, they will be focused on them and not your scene. I've never had a problem. I mean, we sometimes we have some people that'll do something stupid, but normally it doesn't have to do with anything as far as messing up a scene.
Wow, what do you got going on here?
This was again part of the second floor of the lab. This is the morgue area. In this one, when we first got in here, you actually walked where the light up, I guess, glass tubing there. They actually walked straight through it. They looked at the scene, took down the existing walls, and then just repainted everything, redesigned the room where you actually walk through the room, and then the guy on the table, he actually squirts water at you from his chest, which is the distraction for the actor that comes out from on the left from behind the morgue drawers there.
Shit, man. We really need to step it up, man, after seeing all this shit.
I doing a lot. There's just a lot of stuff. Just putting paint on stuff is really what really set the room apart from where it was before. It's just adding some distressing to it, and they already had good stuff there. It was just putting them through the scenes instead of by the scenes.
Mm-hmm. Immersion.
Yes.
Yeah, Bart, I'll apologize if this question's already been asked, but for lighting, do you use LEDs also, or do you, because I see you have like these hanging lights. Right.
We have we either have Gantum or osmium lights in there, which are all LED.
Osmium, yeah, I use them all the time.
Now, this is an interesting one. Me and
Kenneth.
Yes, me and Kenneth actually worked. Me and Kenneth actually worked together, but didn't work together. Kenneth actually built this, and then he was gone by the time I came up, and I painted it. And so it was a beautiful, beautiful set at dark hour. And I actually had the pleasure of painting this awesome stuff, man. It was really cool to paint.
I think I sent along some of the pictures of it when I was finished, when it was still straight up styrofoam.
Yeah.
This is also the one where I cut my finger really bad, and we were talking about earlier.
Right.
2 hands.
We used a lot of we did a lot. We used a lot of spray paint on this, along with the wash. Again, we painted everything. We dry brushed. We used spray paint, and then we did a wash. So there's a lot of different types of layers into it.
Yeah, it's not fair that both of you guys work together. That's like a double not fair.
It was kind of working together. I mean, I never saw him. We didn't even see each other.
No. So, yeah, it was. This was a lot of fun, and then of course there's your favorite.
My favorite.
Yes.
Oh, I can see the resemblance now. Oh yeah. You copying mofo.
I'm such a copier.
Yeah.
It was perfect.
Again, if you look back here at the wagons, that's just fence panel. It's just painted fence panel. That's all that is. We had the curtain, we had the tarps, and then of course we just used Christmas lighting. And again, it's just we actually put sand on the floor. Everything else is made out of plywood and 2x4s. The Jack in the Box we actually got from Garden Ridge back in 2007. So, which was a awesome find because they actually look really good for coming out of something of Garden Ridge. So, the signs I actually got from another haunt, Zombie Manor. They used to be a home haunt, and he gave me the signs. So, but yeah, it turned out really good. Michael actually, for those of you who know Michael Edwards, who's texting me right now, I'm trying to ignore him. He actually built the wagon on the left. So I told him, I said, hey, I want a wagon here that sticks out, and that's where actually the actor pops out of. And he did that over the weekend that I was out of town. So
I honestly copied this whole scene. Obviously, it didn't come out that good, but I did copy the whole scene. So watch out what you show me.
Hey Bart, now when it comes to your favorite material or the best material to use, what would you recommend?
Depends on what type of material you're talking about. I mean, you talking about wood? You talking about?
We'll go with wood. So as far as wood? Do you fence picketing boards? Plywood? Do we? Whatever it might be.
The 3/8 plywood. I could do anything off of that. I mean, we're doing everything with that on the third floor of the schoolhouse. I mean, we're doing flooring, paneling. I mean, we're you just got to paint it right. You got to stain it right. It's just you can make it look totally different than anything like that. But also, like using fence panels. I mean, fence panels you can use for all different kinds of things as long as you just got to paint it differently and make it look different. But and of course, with John, I love amber shellac. I mean, I'm big into that. So that material. So I hope
if you actually go to A Haunter's Life, he has a YouTube channel that shows actually how he does everything. And I mean, if you haven't seen it, I don't know what's wrong with you. but he literally tells you how to do everything that he does, which is awesome. All right, we're going to move over to John and show some more pictures, and I'm going to put a spot there. Oh shit, he's right on it.
Huh? Yeah.
Alrighty.
Damn.
So this is this is actually when I was talking before, when you're looking through the double doors, this is the room that you end up in that you can see into, and it's set as more of a freezer type room. And for the walls and the ceiling on this, we actually used Luan paneling and paint rolled it with a metallic silver paint. And again, it's more of the amber shellac. There's a little bit of brutal rust paint here and there throughout the scene. And just around that corner, we have typically an actor who's chained up, pleading for you to, help her and get her out of there, because you don't. I don't know. In a lot of the houses that I've been through, you don't see the victims as often as you do the aggressors. So it's ghost ride bodies and she's in there pleading for her life that she wants you to help her out, and nobody ever does. It's weird.
So
this is just another angle.
Is that light flickering, or is this the lighting that you?
I believe that light is normally flickering. It's hard for me to remember right now. I think we have a Fright Props controller on that for the flicker on it, and that box is another HGR find. They have all the equipments and stuff from everything from machine shops and all of that. Brutal rust coming down from the open up morgue panels, and more amber shellac. It's my best friend. Amber shellac and wood stain.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in this picture here, the box you were talking about that you found, does that? It looks like it sticks out pretty far. Have you ever had anybody like hit that or complain about?
No, we've never had anybody complain about it. I mean, yeah. I'm sure once in a while people might nudge it, but it's pretty securely on there. I mean, there's enough of a lead up to it that they can see it, and there's no scare until they get around the corner.
Gotcha.
This is more of the distressed hallways with the ripped down plywood for the lats and the busted out ceiling. Same process as the earlier pictures, just in a separate area of the haunt, and it's done in a much darker tones.
So how do you get the plywood to stick to the slats? Just glue,
all of
or?
Those. No, actually, all of that is there's studs about every 2 foot, and you go in and we either shoot screws. Usually, we'll put it up with a few nails and then tack screws in, and then cover it with a paper so that you never see the screw holes.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, looks really neat.
That's a continuation of the hallway, with again the busted out ceiling, because you need sprinkler systems and all of that to or when if smoke was to happen, needs to be able to go up. So that disappears. The whole ceiling of the inside of the building is painted black so that it disappears into nothingness.
I see you didn't use a fire extinguisher in this room.
Yeah,
I know. There might. I'm not gonna lie. If I remember correctly, there might be a picture of a fire extinguisher in the next room. I can't remember. Okay. Yeah, a picture. No. After that hallway, you come into a. That's me in the corner looking stupid. That's the door. That's the hallway you exit out of this room, and you walk in behind a couch. And we have one of the fake fireplaces inset into the fireplace cut out there. The railroad tie for the mantelpiece and some old busted statues and whatnot. We have a lot of taxidermied heads. Some of them are really old and start to get kind of grody after a while. And I think when they're not in pristine shape, they start to look a little bit better.
I was going to say, those are awesome.
Yeah, the hyena up in the top corner is my
Vicious.
favorite. So,
what'd you use for the paneling in this? This doesn't look like normal. Stuff you can...
That's I believe that is. Where did that come from?
I'm gonna guess Home Depot.
Menards, maybe. Yeah, that's from Menards. And more amber shellac. I mean, that's my go-to right now. Like I said, this has been my first year foray into set design, and I rapidly became a fan of it. But it's framed in. The bookcases are vacuum form panels. Due to time constraints, we had to open. As is tradition, and you hit that time crunch. You exit the room we were just into a dining room area, and old wallpaper and more amber shellac. I mean, and keep in mind, this is all brightly lit so that my photographer Taylor could get better pictures of it. Typically, it's much darker, and that makes me a little sad. But you know, it's the plight of what it is. A lot of the tables and stuff are finds, curbside finds from time to time. They, stuff we've had around and about for a while. Take them and throw them into a room and hope it works. And sometimes it turns out decent.
There was a few questions about fire codes. Do you ever have any trouble with
he's got fire scenes everywhere.
Yeah. So we actually brought in the fire marshal came in and did his inspection and was very pleased with everything that we had. We have exits out of this building. I think you don't go more than 50 foot without an emergency exit.
Oh, very cool.
And we have open ceilings in a majority of the area.
All right. Well, we're going to move over to Ken and show some more of his pictures.
I'm under the spot.
Oh.
That ice cream.
Yeah, an ice cream.
Here showdown. Oh,
yeah, here we go.
And that's nice.
Yeah.
That's a dark hour. It was the entrance to the haunt. I don't know if it's still there. I haven't been in it.
It is.
So it is?
Yes.
Yeah. It's this is the entrance. So the queue line is kind of like where we are in this viewpoint. And then this is all foam and wood. And those angels we ordered from we ordered them online from a place.
Phone a friend.
Tuscan Delights or something like that. No, I don't remember, but we ordered those angels, and then all that foliage and stuff we got from a place online, which unfortunately no longer exists. But it's just basically all styrofoam and wood, and then that's another thing. This is something we sprayed with with like a stucco kind of thing.
Fencing is really nice. I like that.
The fence, yeah. I think we got that at Home Depot. The fence came from Home Depot, and as well as that lamp thing might have come from Lowe's. And all of the urns we got from Home Depot, and we painted them and stuck them up there.
Ken, would you have any recommendations for the fake plants? I know that those can be kind of expensive, or not just those in general, but any type of fake plants.
If you can make it, I feel like it's always cheaper.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, the dollar store, like the Dollar Tree, if you go at the right time, they have amazing fake plants. They also have really, really good fake moss. Not like Spanish moss, but like that moss you would find growing on rocks in the forest. You can get a bag of that for $1. And at Michael's, it's like $8.99 a bag. But for there's some larger kind of like rooty vines going up in through here. And those we bought, but I would not buy those anymore. I did a project in a different part of Texas a few years ago, and we made the vines out of brown bed sheets that we had, and we ripped it into shreds, and then we dipped them all into latex, and then squeezed out all of the excess latex, and then twisted them up so that once they were dried, they looked like twisted, long, knotty vines, and we used that instead of purchasing something online.
Oh shit! Good to know. Good to know.
Yeah, it's a good trick. This is at House of Horrors and Haunted Catacombs in Buffalo, New York, and he wanted a. I think what he said, he wanted a church for Satan, which is, so it's not everyone's thing, and I realize that. But that's what he wanted, and so we built this kind of cathedral facade thing. And then, so the foliage on this is those grapevine wreaths that you can get at like Hobby Lobby or Michael's. Those are great. I love those things. They're cheap, they're readily available, and they look amazing. This is all styrofoam and wood, again, all sprayed with a stucco finish. And then we just distressed it using the water and paint technique that I talked about earlier. Although this was a few years ago, and I've kind of moved on from using the stucco and the paint kind of thing for these kind of exterior looking facades.
Man, looks amazing.
This is the interior of that facade we just saw. And again, this is all just wall panels that we built, and it's all of the trim and the bricks and all of that. It's all straight up styrofoam. Those large murals we got, we ordered online and cut them to shape to fit inside of those frames. But what you can't see is that we spent time taking those mural things outside and distressing them to make them look like they were actually painted. And I came across this really cool technique, which actually worked. And you can get like this flocking material. It's like very, very fine, like fur clippings, if that makes any sense. And I found this technique online where you mix this flocking material with like water and dish soap so that you have lots of bubbles. All of those flocking pieces get caught up inside of all of the bubbles, and then you spread the bubbles across the surface of this supposed painting. And once the soap and the water dries away, what you're left with is what looks like crackling inside of the painting because of those flocking pieces are left behind. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it works in my mind. So we did that over the whole thing to give it like a crackled kind of finish, but we could still see the painting, and then we distressed it with some wood stain. And yeah, I think just wood stain.
Do you want to repeat that? Because it looks like Jose was interested. He might have to write that
I'm over here doing like the Bill and Ted, you know, like we're not worthy. I'm not worthy. He's over here flocking and bubbles, and I'm like, what? Oh my god!
I don't know. I mean, it's just like I was like, you know, we got them and they were printed, so they were shiny and printed and new. And you're like, well, this is not going to work. So what could we do that's going to add an element of more realism to it that isn't just putting paint on it?
But where did the idea come from, though? That's
I googled it.
Like, oh.
I googled how to make something look like it's crackling.
Oh.
And of course,
you missed your chance. You should have just said, "I came up with it because I'm that brilliant."
It's my own idea.
There you go. Right, you're learning.
Damn.
Shit. Yeah.
Holy shit.
This is to the right of that facade. So when you walk in, there's that cathedral facade we saw, and then this is to the right. And the idea is that there's like this whole thing is crashing in on itself, and the steeple fell. And so there's that wooden steeple right there. And then there were actually some big columns that we built out of foam that we threw up against the side of the building to kind of look like it was part of the steeple had crumbled down over it. And he had this huge winged demon figure that he mounted behind the wall, where the wall is kind of caving in over there. That I guess he was a moving thing, and he was doing this, like crunching the wall down. But again, it's all just wood and styrofoam, and then we sprayed it with a mortar mixture, and then I kind of do this. I call it like dry brushing with a white mortar, which makes that patchiness on the outside of it. So I'm taking a trowel and just kind of dipping it into my white mortar, and then just lightly pulling it across the surface like you would if you were dry brushing something. And it makes a very convincing kind of like broken up stone pattern situation. And then all of that wood is fence paneling that he had. So it was, you know, like you would have at your yard. He had probably 40 of those. And so we took those apart and built the steeple and the top sections of that wall all out of the fence panels.
Man.
Damn. So you just used a roller for all the details there.
No, we didn't roll anything. So once the whole structure was built and foamed out, we used the hopper to spray the entire thing with 2 or 3 coats of thin set, and then let that dry, and then went over with that dry brushing trowel technique I was talking about with a white mortar, which is that lighter color.
I don't know what that trowel. What is that?
You know what, Kim? I got everything you were saying. So
yeah. And then
fine. Go ahead.
Sometimes,
whatever.
We'll explain
Sometimes
it to
it
them later.
goes through my head and it makes sense in my head, comes out of my mouth.
Whatever. I'll
Yeah,
search
you know,
it on
like
Google later. Never mind.
like a trowel, you know, like a little trowel.
Like when you're mudding and stuff.
Like the little triangle middle thing.
Yeah, except
Oh, even
Okay.
Jamie knows what it
with
is.
a handle.
Come on, Phil, keep up, man.
Okay, my bad. Sorry. Jeez. Sorry for asking a question. I'm just gonna go sit in my corner now.
I'll teach you later, Phil. Don't worry about it.
Courtney says, Ken, would you say there's a limit to detailing a room?
Nope.
No, never. I don't think
Never.
so.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the more the better, but I wouldn't. No, you can always do more. I thought one thing, but decided not. No, I mean, I feel like things can always be better. You know, you can always improve. You can always improve on something. But I mean, I try and get it right the first time. This is a morgue inside of Brighton Asylum. This is part of. This is the left side of the room of the picture of those windows we had talked about earlier. And again, this is just the tile panels from Home Depot. We built the counters and the cabinets all from scratch. All of those bottles and all those little sundries all on the shelves and everything, we ordered online from this company that mass produces those kind of jars for like cosmetics. And it's all wood stain and a little bit of paint, but mostly wood stain, and lots of shellac is on there. Some of the stuff in the picture, like the scale he had already. This is a picture. Yeah, that.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I'm going
this
back
is a
and forth,
picture.
sorry.
No, it's okay. This is a picture of those windows that we saw earlier through the door. And I mean, yeah, we just built it. It's just kind of came together.
Did you say yet what you used for the glass?
It's plexiglass.
Did you use the frost paint on it?
You can use that, but I find that that's a lot more expensive than just a can of cheap white spray paint. And it does kind of the same thing if you're not holding your can this far away from the glass.
Mhm.
If you hold it back and you let it fall, it does kind of the same thing. But we bought just one big piece of plexiglass and broke it up into many different pieces. But the pain in the butt thing is having to, what we always do is if we're dealing with broken plexiglass, we sand all the edges down. So even though it's plexiglass, it can still get kind of sharp if you're breaking it up. So we sand all the edges down so no one gets cut or stabbed by a sharp edge, just to be safe, you know. Okay, so this is the cabin facade of the kitchen that we saw earlier. And this was cool because that bridge that's right there is actually, it's automated. So it starts out flat, and then as they walk across, it drops. And then from the right side right here we built these two trees. And then we had one of those like A-frame jumper things where you put on like a harness and it's two huge rubber bands. You know what I'm talking about? And then the actor can jump and then fly up into the air.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not allowed to ask and say, no, I don't, because I'm just going to go back to my corner.
I'll explain to you later, Phil.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll explain to you later.
No, I know what you're talking about.
So the actor could be, the actor actually landed on the railing of the bridge. But this cabin facade, the idea came from that movie, Cabin in the Woods. The logo on the front of that DVD is a cabin that looks like a Rubik's Cube that's kind of like spun and flipped in many different directions. So that was the idea behind this facade, which is why one part of the house is on its side, one part of the house is upside down, the front door is over, and you can't see it, but like inside of that screen door area, we had a whole scene set in there. So there was like a table with a lamp and a picture and a chair, but it was all sitting sideways to match that section of the sideways house.
Oh, that is so cool.
That is cool.
This is this is a Transworld booth. We saw the picture earlier.
I remember that one.
Yeah?
Yeah, I was telling my wife, I was like, look at this shit, man.
Yeah, that's, what is that? Oh, it's doors. So like that wainscoting on the bottom half of the door, bottom half of the walls are just like regular like pocket doors you would find at Home Depot or whatever, but I bought them at the Habitat Restore, which down here is like kind of like what you have there, where if there's like a hotel that closes or if there's a construction project that finishes and they have surplus supplies, they bring it to the Habitat Restore and they sell it. So there's doors, windows, anything you can imagine. A lot of this stuff came from there because I try to do.
I love going to that store to shop.
Yeah, they're great. They have everything. It was amazing. But
so for a little set like this, how long does it take you to build this?
I took my time on this because it was for Transworld. I don't remember how long it took. I probably worked on it for maybe a week or so, maybe a little bit longer, but like here and there, not straight for a week, you know? The hardest part was trying to figure out the TV and the sound and the lighting. That was the hardest part for me, but I think someone bought it. Someone bought the whole thing by the end of the show. So I don't have that anymore. This is actually, part of this is from my first booth at Transworld, and I held on to some of the items. But this is part of an escape game here in New Orleans. She has a voodoo-themed escape game, and this is one of the rooms inside of her voodoo game. And I had all kinds of stuff laying around, and we brought it all and put it all together. We used fence paneling, we used pallets, we used some stuff that I had left over from a previous Transworld exhibit. All of that stuff on the walls, we just painted, made it up as we went along. You know, there's tons of references here, especially for where she's located. She's located in downtown New Orleans, where the whole voodoo thing, and there's tons of voodoo shops and voodoo tours. So it fit really well in with the city. But I think we did this in like maybe 2 days. But what you can't see is that I went into the woods and gathered probably 500 sticks and made, I think I made like 125 little crosses out of sticks that we hung from the ceiling. So from the ceiling are hanging all of these like crazy kind of like Blair Witch crosses. If you saw the movie Seven, you know the scene where they go into the room and the dude is tied to the bed, but he's actually alive, and they have all of those air fresheners hanging from the ceiling?
Yeah. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. You just ruined it for me.
I was going to finish that right after the show.
Yeah, imagine instead of air fresheners, imagine like crosses, like Blair Witch kind of crosses hanging from the ceiling.
Very cool. All right, we're gonna move back over to Bart. We're getting ready to finish up all the pictures, man. This is.
I don't want it to be over. This just has too much fun.
I know. I could do this for another hour, just looking at all their stuff for me to make.
It might be another hour before we find some pictures. There we go.
I'm going back to my
corner. This is the backyard of the haunt house. And we built this in 2009, but we built a bunch of shacks back there, and of course we had a lot of plywood laying around out back that we just saved instead of throwing it away or burning it. And so when we built these shacks, we're like, okay, well, we have all this old wood that's already weathered and all that, and so believe it or not, it's actually a lot harder to piece the inside of the cabin or the shack, you know, to make it look like you didn't do it on purpose. You know, it's just like this is the way it was built, and so yeah, it actually took a while because you sit there and go, okay, I need this piece, and then like with Michael, I'd go, okay, cut me this piece, and I'd put it there, and okay, cut me this piece, and so yeah, it took a lot of time. Now, all the stuff that we got that's in here, which is the bones, all the pots and all that. What we did is a friend of ours, grandma wanted a barn taken down, and she asked us to take it down, and the agreement was if I took it down, I could have everything that was inside of it.
Nice.
That sounds like a good deal, man. Barn finds are the best.
Oh, I filled the whole backyard with it. I mean, everything in all the shacks was from that barn. And so what we did is we just did again just did prop placement here and there, and this is actually
just
say again
here there. That's it. Just here and there. That's it. Yeah, just.
See, like I was saying, just throwing shit in there.
Yeah,
pretty awesome.
Bob Boy would like to know: what did you use to get the dust effects on the pots, or is that just natural?
That's natural. That's from all the gravel that was, people walking. They don't walk through gravel. They don't walk through your haunt. They scoot through your haunt. So it just all that dust that just gets kicked up the air. It just naturally. However, Haunter's Life was going to come up with a patent on dust in a can.
We're waiting.
Dust in a can is basically primer spray paint, primer gray spray paint. You just basically you hold it up in the air away from the prop, and you just spray it up in the air, and it'll fall down onto it, and you got permanent dust. So,
patent pending.
When you're doing the whole room, you just spin in a real slow circle and try not to.
You can, or you just sit there and just look at something. But again, out there, a lot of the dust was from the gravel.
Yeah, if you sit there and follow Haunter's Life, most of it's pretty unconventional, but it works.
Or like if we're trying to put dust in things on jars, we'll paint it down with wood stain and then sprinkle like the thin set or the concrete over the top of it. And it'll harden, and it looks funky and dusty, and it stays.
Yeah.
So I've done that before.
Oh, very good. What about this room? This is a lot of work right here.
Again, this is that same kitchen. It's just the other side of it, and it's going into the library or the bar. And again, we just made it look like a hole in the wall without. We got to keep everything straight so when people go through, they don't stab themselves. So you kind of got to work with it. You want a hole in the wall, but you got to make it nice and neat so people don't sue you. This is basically it. Again, we changed this room around again several times. The actual to actually leave the room was actually on the other side where the cabinet was. So again, we did altercations and did some stuff. But again, the ceiling is what I like the most.
I know I'm really growing on these ceilings. I need to do this in a haunt. This is awesome.
They make a huge difference.
Yeah, it encloses the room. You feel it gives it more of that immersion factor.
I did start going. I went from using color lights, at the haunt house to using actual natural lighting. So I started going with the LED bulbs, and again, I would always put the wood right by the bulb. That way, any light that came off of it shined down. But that actually made it where what was above that was actually a lot darker, so you couldn't tell what was up there.
Beautiful.
That's just the other side of the falling down. Ceiling there for the stairwell. Once you went under the stairs is where the actor was above you and would actually reach down at you.
Now, what'd you use for the ceiling in that? It looks like it's like stretching.
No, it's actually just the distressing that we use.
Really?
There. Yeah.
That's good.
It's just plywood with sheetrock.
Damn.
So,
you can't even tell. That's amazing.
Say it again, Phil.
Damn.
Say it again.
No. I'm just kidding.
This was at dark hour. This was the second thing that we got to work on there, which was he said he wanted this is actually coming out of the sewer. He said he wanted to make it look like you're coming out of the sewer. This is all foam. Of course there is some wood backings. If you do want to see this further, we do have a video of it on a Haunter's Life. Also, Dark Hour I think has a time lapse video of it. But again, it was a lot of fun. Again, there's a lot of foam and some tiger foam along with it to make it look like mud was coming out. But again, they have actually down there at the very bottom is where they actually have water. And again, on the bottom is that what we did with Tiger Foam was we just took all our pieces of foam that we had left, cut it all up, throw it down there, and that way it made it look like piles of rock and stuff like that.
Now, how long did it take you guys to build this?
That was, we started building it Monday, and they were open Friday.
Holy shit!
Yeah, that was a fun week. That was definitely a fun week. So wow. Yeah, but I mean, it was a really fun project. I loved everything I did at Dark Hour. It was, you know, everything was big.
Now, can you guys actually look at everything that you guys have done, and do you actually think that it can be done at a 3D wash?
That was actually done. No, that one was actually.
Because I want to do like a Silent Hill thing, but I want the detail that you guys got, but I want to like get a little bit of I want to have a wash of 3D on it, so it would pop with the glasses. Just
that one actually was.
Oh, was it? Oh shit! Yeah. Well, I'm gonna talk to you later. I'm gonna call you, man.
I did not do the 3D wash on it though. They painted it after we already did it. Somebody else did it at Dark Hour, but that was part of their 3D section.
What's that?
Sorry. I would look at the Wildfire Optical White paint. It's white, but it shows up with like it's not necessarily a color, so you could put it on something and you wouldn't really see it, but when you hit it with a black light, it shows up like it's glowing, but there's no real color to it. Right. So that might be an option.
Right. I wanted, my wife's making me do a 3D haunt, but I don't want to go with the whole clown thing. I want to do like a Silent Hill type. And so it's like, I don't want to, I gotta make it work somehow.
Hey, Jamie, can you add this to the list of what a 3D distressing is for later?
Put it on the list. Put it on the list.
My list is getting really long, you guys.
Right. All right, guys. We're coming to the end of the show, and man, I can't say how amazing your guys' stuff was. And man, if you haven't learned anything from this, then you don't want to. And Jamie definitely sent me all their pics, so because I need to build my haunt this year, so I need all their stuff, and I'm gonna go back and copy everything.
At least he's honest. You know, he tells you right from the
deal. Right? No shame in my game. I'm gonna tell you, I'm copying something from everybody. I'll give you a shout out.
What is it? Mimicry is the sincerest form of flattery.
Yeah,
right.
Like that.
All right, so I have one quick question for the panel. I know we got to get going.
Please tell me it's not what's a trowel.
I found out from the comments. Don't worry. But no, I'll start with Bart. Have you had any construction background?
No.
And okay, so then how did you learn the do and don'ts of, you know, building sets and all that sort of stuff?
I just did it.
Okay. All right.
Honestly, that's just honest. I just started doing it. I didn't really learn from anybody. Everything I've done as far as like sculpting to anything is all self-taught.
Nice. Question to you, John. Same thing. Construction background? No.
No, not one bit. Again, it was a trial and error sort of thing. What works? I mean, granted, like I said, I did a little bit of sit up and tear down for a temporary show, but other than that, I mean, I took architectural design and drafting in high school, if that counts for anything, but I don't really think it necessarily does.
Yeah. Okay. Ken, to you?
No, I have no construction background. I've never, no.
So we're all good. We're all good.
There you go. So for all of you watching tonight, you guys can go do this just as all these people are, and we're going to find the next John, Ken, and Bart.
I think I just learned from doing. So, I mean, and I've been lucky enough to work with a lot of talented people. I learned I learned a lot of stuff in the past 2.5 years doing random things at 13th Gate. I learned a lot there. So for me, it's just been trial and error and watching and learning from what other people are doing and putting the work into it. Because I used to think like, I would see amazing sets at like Netherworld or 13th Gate and be like, what are they doing over there to make this amazing, amazing stuff? Right. But then once you get there and you're watching them and you see how it goes behind the scenes, you're like, it's the exact same thing I'm doing. The only difference is they're putting a lot of work into it, and they're paying attention to every single detail.
Devil's in the details.
Yeah, so I think that's a big part of it, is just put the work into it, and you'll end up with something really great that you can be proud of.
Nice.
Oh man, I mean, we could probably put a good another hour into the show. It's just all their amazing stuff, but we did hit that deadline, and but definitely go back, and in the descriptions there's their website. I mean, their websites, their YouTube where they've done stuff. I mean, all that stuff's right there for you guys to go look at, and they definitely have a lot more to show than what we've showed here today. So, but we want to thank them guys for coming out and showing us all their stuff. It's like amazing. I feel like I'm totally not worthy. I'm just gonna quit hunting right now. Just
no, don't do that. Don't do that.
It's okay.
That's the worst. That's the worst faux pas there is. Don't just keep going.
So we're gonna move over to Jamie, and we're gonna see who won all the prizes for tonight for asking the questions.
Yeah, and if I call your name, message me with your name, your address, your phone number, and your email address, so we can get these prizes out to you.
Woohoo!
But first tonight, and we have some really awesome prizes tonight, by the way. First, we have this awesome mask from Face Factory FX. And the winner for this is Matt Burke.
Woo-hoo!
Then Fright Props is giving away this Bad Seed Creature Reacher costume. And I have to say, I own this, and this is one of my favorite costumes. This thing is amazing. And the lucky winner of this tonight is Jerry Barb.
Great for Jerry.
Sinful Audio, once again, is giving away for one lucky winner, one free SFX library, and then if you so choose, 25% off of original sound design and 10% off of amps and speakers. And the lucky winner for this today is Taylor Howie. I hope I said your name right. And then, of course, Ornaments is giving away this awesome chainsaw. I'm never going to get it.
Wait, finally got it right.
I know. Awesome. The season finale.
Got it right.
And this prize goes to Christy Lynn Farrell.
Yeah, Christy.
And then, of course, we have 1 gallon of fog from Froggy's Fog, which every haunter needs. And the winner of this is Richard Huntley.
Congrats, Richard.
From Haunt Labs, they're giving away this incredible flicker fluorescent kit, which turns old fluorescent light fixtures into the flickering bright light typically only achieved by Hollywood special effects artists. And the lucky winner tonight is Danielle Foreman.
What? Danielle.
There's still more prizes?
There's more. Don't forget that everyone tonight that's watching this, or if you watch this tomorrow, I guess, if you go to Sam Hain's website, you can get 50% off of anything that you want to order using the capital letters, all capital, Haunters.
Woo-hoo.
And then, of course, we can't forget this awesome realistic-looking skull from Nightmare Makers. And the winner of this is Tyler Dominic.
All right.
I gotta say, Jamie's killing it right now.
I'm trying to get through this fast.
Hey, Phil, see how that shit works?
It's pick on Phil Day.
It's always pick on Phil Day.
I guess so.
All right, from I Love FX Makeup, you're winning this Hollywood FX Hybrid Alcohol Airbrush Makeup, 2 ounce. It is a base 6-color kit. It can be airbrushed, sponged, or brushed onto your body. It's It applies smoothly, dries within seconds, and is thin enough that you'll forget you're even wearing it. And the winner of this is Beth Williams.
That's Beth.
And then, of course, Exotic Lenses. The winner of this gets one free non-prescription pair of their choice, and the winner of this is Nate Dingman.
Oh, God, no.
And then last, but certainly not least, we're giving away a $25 gift card from Hotwire Phone Factory, and the winner of that is Dave Rapien, R-A-P-I-E-N, Rapien.
Yeah.
So if I called your name, please message me all your information.
Nice. Awesome. Congrats, everyone. Woo!
Yeah, that's a lot of prizes right there. All right, we definitely want to thank all our sponsors that support us all year long. And definitely go to them for all your haunt needs this haunt season. And we want to thank all the guests that come on. We want to thank Kathy for helping us, Jamie, Phil, all our hosts and everything for helping us out this whole season. We're going to start back up in February of next year, and we'll start a whole new season out. But definitely thank Bart, John, and Ken for coming out with their shit. Man, I can't even say amazing. Don't even.
We are not worthy.
Phenomenal.
We are not worthy.
Phenomenal. There you go.
Phenomenal.
I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, no problem.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and that's it, man. See you next year.